Hi, this is Anna from the Great Aussie Hike. We've put together a fantastic panel of experts to share their knowledge, experience and tips on how to prepare for the next Great Aussie Hike Challenge around Daylesford and the Wombat State Forest. I really enjoyed my chat with them all and strongly believe that following all this great advice provided will ensure you have a successful journey on course in April. It's definitely worth grabbing a pen and paper and taking down notes to help you prepare. Don't forget to share the insights with your teammates as well. Good luck with the training and we can't wait to see you at the start line soon. So let's start with the Great Aussie Hike's very own Luke Stevens to learn all about the course. So Luke, what made you want to ride a course in Daylesford and Wombat State Forest?
Look, growing up nearby in Bendigo, Daylesford has always been a wonderful place to visit and explore. When we were looking at the next place to hold this amazing challenge, it was hard to go past the beautiful historic town and its vibrant surrounds and take you all on an adventure to the Spa country.
So let's start with the day one course that's 50 kilometres, beginning in Blackwood and finishing up that evening in Daylesford.
Yeah, look, day one sees you're winding through the Wombat State Forest along a range of different bush tracks. It's starting in the gorgeous little town of Blackwood, and you'll be walking alongside rivers, through some rugged bush trails, and see some of the historic sites that are located throughout parts of the forest.
And then on day two, our longer distance teams start at sunrise at Moorabool Reservoir.
Yeah, that's correct. The sunrise over the reservoir will be lovely and a great refreshing start to the day. The rest of the day will take you through different sections of the Wombat State Forest before heading back to the Lerderderg walking track and Jubilee Lake, where you will join back in with the 30-kilometre walkers and around the outskirts of Daylesford before heading up to the famous Hepburn Mineral Springs Reserve. And then we will return back down through Daylesford and to the really popular Lake Daylesford just before the finish line.
And then our 30 kilometres course is, you've mentioned a bit of that, they've got a little bit of a different start, haven't they?
Yeah, that's correct. They'll take a little bit of a different trail back out, but they'll join the main track at around Jubilee Lake, which is about the first wellness stop of the day for them.
And you've done this little extra bit that the 30Ks get that little different section. That's so that they can have a loop where they start and finish in the same location, which is very convenient to most people.
Oh, yeah, definitely an advantage. And that's one of the great reasons to be up in Daylesford is, yes, we can have that loop course for the 30-kilometre, starting and finishing the same location at the Daylesford Showground, but it's still allowing the walk to majority of the time be in the bush and really covers a wide variety of terrain.
Can you tell us a little bit about the type of terrain?
Look, the terrain at the majority of the course will be rough, rocky and uneven dirt tracks because you're out in the bush most of the time. There's a couple of little footpath sections on day two as we travel between these bush sections, but the forest will change throughout the day, with parts of the course feeling like a bit of a rainforest, really quite warm and wet, while others are really dry and dusty tracks. There are lakes, rivers, streams throughout the course, and you just really do get a really good look at different areas as we go around.
Now, we keep telling people that this potentially could be a very wet course. What do we mean by that?
Oh, look, just getting up there, it's an area that is very dry on the ground, but it holds a lot of water on the surface. So there's always a lot of standing water. So the track may not have had many rain for a while, but it'll still have a lot of standing water on the course and be a bit wet underfoot at times.
And what about if it has been really wet and raining quite a bit the week before the challenge?
If it has been really wet and raining, look, that water's going to be at times almost flowing across the course in a low level state, not a high risk flood state, but a low level just
enough
cover over the course and just create that little bit of slipperiness as you go around.
Which is where those lugs on people's shoes are really, really important.
Yeah, definitely where those lugs will be important, and yeah, just a pair of shoes that are waterproof and have those lugs for that extra support. Even in the dry, the lugs will definitely be helping out on the rocks and the dust and dirt.
It's such an uneven terrain.
Yeah, that's right. very uneven.
And one of the biggest questions that we always get asked of people is about the elevations, especially because when they go and look at the course map section, it's the mapping system we use actually magnifies the elevation. So it looks like that they're going up and down some hills. Could you tell us a bit more about what you've designed here?
So this course actually isn't too steep as in on the hills. There are them, I'm not even going to call them mountains. I'm just going to call them little hills. So there are some rolling hills as we go up and over and around. But the good thing is your elevations are actually pretty evened out for the day. So I believe whatever you're walking up, you're coming back down, which always makes it a bit nice and very nice and easy.
So like you've spent many, many, many days out on course putting this all together. What are your biggest tips to all our participants when they're preparing?
Look, I think you said the key word there, Anna, preparing. Look, preparation is the most important thing you can do to help you on challenge day to enjoy it, but also get through it really easily and just make it that more exciting for you for the day. Other things that you really need to take into account are comfortable, waterproof, worn-in shoes, and have a spare pair in your support vehicle to change into if you need to during the day. There's every chance parts of the course will be wet, even if it haven't rained much before in the event. Lugs on your shoes, as we'll mention before, just because it gets slippery both in the dry and in the wet, and there's loose rocks and gravel and things in the dry, and just in the wet, obviously the water running over. Be comfortable and familiar with your gear. Just know what you've got out there with you, and you don't want to be trying new things on the day. And just enjoy the beautiful environment that you're in. Enjoy it with your mates. Have a chat, have a walk and talk, and just really enjoy the day out there.
Is it important to train on the course?
Look, it's not important to train on the course. It's important to get out and train and walk on a variety of different places and surfaces, not necessarily on the course. Just take on the hills in training and get yourself well prepared, ready to take on anything. And you get to enjoy the course on the day that way as well.
And it's very important for them to be training on lots of uneven surfaces as well as concrete. Like obviously it's easier for people getting out every day to walk around their neighborhood, but it's important, yes, to get out at least once a week onto some rugged terrain.
Absolutely. Look, there's the terrain is rough and rocky, so it's really good to get out on that sort of loose gravel and different surfaces to make sure that you are ready and prepared for it all.
Now, the course location and safety issues obviously dictate the compulsory and recommended gear items. Can you run us through both lists of what people need to have on course?
Yeah, definitely, Anna. The compulsory gear that each participant will need to carry is the Capra apps with the Great Aussie Hike maps loaded, iFirst Aid app, the ability to carry 2 litres of water, reflective strips, best in the form of a high-vis vest, head torch, some personal food, mobile phone, any personal medication, and your race bib. Each team must carry on course in every section a small first aid kit, 2 emergency space blankets, 2 snake bandages, and we strongly recommend each participant has ambulance cover and personal accident insurance.
And Luke, do you check the compulsory items before people?
Oh yes, just before we start, we'll run through your entire team to check all the compulsory items. We just need to make sure that everyone is safe out on course, and that involves having these items with you and have them with you on course throughout the day.
And if they don't have them and they've got to run to the shop, will you stop the whole start line?
We won't be stopping the whole start line. You may have to wait to get onto the section at the first wellness stop, if that's the case.
So tell us a little bit about the training program that's available for people to use to help them prepare.
Yeah, look, the training program is set up so that people can take your time to build up your fitness by just incremental increases throughout the weeks, and getting in and training with your mates on a weekend for those little bit of that longer walk as where you can. Strengthening is included in that just to make sure that your legs are strong and ready to go, as this is a really important part of your training program, and strengthening and getting your body ready.
And where do people find the training program?
You'll find the training program will be on your dashboard. So you need to log in to your dashboard through the website, and you'll find all the training programs there.
And what about if somebody's just signed up? Obviously, some of our training started from last October, but the current program that's running at the moment, do they start from the start, or do they pick up from how many weeks there are left to go?
Really depends on the person at the time, but you would try and jump in at a stage that they're comfortable coming into that too, and then trying to make sure that they get to that last training, which is about 3 weeks out, the big walk. So you want to be building up to that. So it may mean that you need to come into an area you're comfortable with, skip a week, and jump those weeks to where you're ready. But you don't want to be pushing too far to go out. You still want to build up incrementally.
So maybe they do every second week, skip every second week or something like that to catch up, as opposed to just jumping in and trying to go too hard, too fast.
That's it. Yeah. So you look at every second week, or depending on where you're at to start with.
So Luke, tell us, what are your top tips and tricks for all the participants doing the Great Aussie Hike this year?
The top tip will definitely be staying connected with your teammates throughout training and through the preparation. Checking and reading through the emails, because we have a lot of great information coming along there to help with that preparation. And don't leave everything to the last minute. Get on it now. Get on it and get started going through it all, and make sure you're all ready.
Prepare, prepare, prepare.
Sounds great.
Thanks heaps, Luke.
No problem. Thanks, Anna.
We're now joined by Ro from the Hiking Physio. Thanks for joining us today, Ro.
Hey, Anna, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to the event and supporting your participants. It's a great cause.
And we're excited to have you on board. So tell us a little bit about how you came up with the name, the Hiking Physio.
Well, the name can be taken pretty literally, actually, because I've been both hiking and a physio for about 30 years. But the main message of the name is that it's intended to convey to hikers that this is a dedicated physiotherapy service for them, and that it is a service that is actually for hikers, that's run by hikers who are actually physios.
So the perfect place for all our participants to be coming and getting information and learning from. And if they need some help before they hit challenge day, I think you're the person to hit up. Let's begin with some of your top tips for preparing your body for an endurance event.
Look, one of the big things is, and it's an important part of this particular challenge, is putting in the training is where the magic actually really kind of happens, because it's the training that really helps to prepare your body. And that's a really critical thing, because if you don't do the training and then you go from 0 to 100, of course, human bodies don't like change all that much. So that's where you're going to find that people will get really sore because their bodies are just not ready to deal with it. It's also really important because the training provides the opportunity to test yourself as well as your gear, and to get everything dialed in. It allows you to see what you're capable of and work out if there's anything that's not kind of working. And it also gives you the opportunity to build some strength and mobility. This is something that a lot of walkers often, don't kind of take into account. It's very profound thought that, just to improve hiking, you just need to do more hiking. But the problem with that is that obviously doing too much of any one thing can lead to overuse injuries. So doing some strengthening work to support your joints and to help you get over any of those obstacles and power you up the hills and everything, as well as some mobility work so that you can stretch and move well, is also really important.
We have lots of our 30K participants who almost dismiss the distance that they're walking using terms like, I'm only doing the 30 kilometers, or I'm just doing the short course. In our perspective, there's no such thing as a short course when we're talking 30 kilometers, but what's your thoughts on someone who's going to walk 30 kilometers in a day?
Look, 30 kilometers is a substantial different distance to walk, and it's something that most people will never do in their lifetime. So, it shouldn't be underrated. It's a distance that'll take many hours to do on the day and many hours of putting in the training. And my thought is that, those hours that you're putting into training and those hours that you're putting into the event are an investment in yourself, and they're an investment in your team. And those efforts should absolutely be celebrated. Look, there are probably a few people who can show up and walk 30 kilometers without, doing much training and get away with it. But that's not really the spirit of what this whole event's about. It's really more about, having that opportunity to invest in your health, have time with your friends, and really make some changes that could turn into some excellent lasting habits for you.
Excellent. We couldn't agree with you more, right? That's exactly what the Great Aussie Hike's all about. So it sounds like you're saying preparation is pretty important to a successful challenge day experience. One of our participants commented in a Facebook group recently that she's completing the 30 kilometers, but she's training for a 35-kilometer walk so that she enjoys her journey on the day. Would you recommend this type of thinking, or use the adrenaline and energy of the day to help you walk the longest distance you've ever done?
Look, a lot of it really comes down to how much time you've got available, Anna. Not everyone has heaps of time in their life. So it also depends on how much time you've got leading up to the event. So when you do something like actually covering more distance than what you're going to have to do in an event, it's a principle that we call overload. And that essentially means that you do that level of training so that on the day you actually can enjoy yourself and you have that extra bit of confidence because you've done it before and you're fine. And if you have someone who's got the amount of time that they can do that and they can build up gradually and still have enough time before the race so that the last couple of weeks are able to include a bit of rest and allow them to be nice and fresh and ready for the event, it's a great way to go because it is going to help their health and their fitness and their confidence. However, that's not necessarily practical for everyone. So it's also good to know that for the average person, if they complete most of the training and they're pretty consistent and they can do a distance that is, typically at least about 75% of the distance of the event, they're in pretty decent shape. If they can't do that 75%, well, it might be a little bit more of a struggle. But even 75%, 75K is a lot. But anyone doing the 100K should be trying to do that over 2 days, not obviously in 1 day anyway. So that makes it a little easier.
Got to share the distance so they can come off and have a little rest for a section too, which is handy.
Yeah, totally.
I think for people who, we do get some people who are a bit worried coming in and going, I don't think I've prepared enough. As long as you've said, that's a really good benchmark to go, have you prepared 75%? Because the energy and the spirit of the day and all the people cheering you on and everything like that will lift you that extra little bit as well.
Yeah, look, 100%. And look, there are some things that you can do that can make it a little bit easier to complete that, full distance on the day if you haven't done it before. And I'm sure you're going to probably ask me some questions about those. So I might have to snake in some of those little tips a bit later.
Save some of your goodies for later. So all the participants are hopefully, we very much hope, training pretty hard at the moment and getting lots of kilometers on their legs. How do they avoid an injury in the lead up to the challenge?
Look, honestly, there's a couple of things that often happen. Number one is people do kind of a bit of a panic and they go, I haven't done anything. And then they start doing these big efforts, like they've gone from maybe walking 15K and they think, oh, look, I'm going to be doing this, 50K. I need to go out and do a 25K. That's kind of the wrong way to go because your body doesn't really like to go from one extreme to another. So where possible, being a bit more consistent and building up your distances gradually can go a long way to helping you out. Those small consistent efforts are just so much better for you and so much more effective than really, big grandiose efforts. Things also like making sure that you're training with your equipment, really paying attention to what you're doing and how your body's feeling. because obviously, if you're not paying attention to what you're doing, one of the biggest problems that I see over and over again, and true confessions, I've done it myself, that when you go to grab something, you stop paying attention to whatever is directly in front of you. And if you're going to actually have to grab something or make an adjustment or take clothing off, it's better to actually speak up and ask your teammates, hey, look, I just need to stop for a sec to grab something, because multitasking is one of the number one things that happens that causes people to fall. So if you can, obviously it's much better to just stop rather than trying to do that multitasking on the trail. So, we all look pretty funny turtled, but we really rather not get injured.
And you'd hate your challenge day experience to be stopped at a stop.
Well, look, honestly, injuries happen, and it's one of those things that, you have to sort of deal with. But at the same time, there are things that you can do to try and prevent it. Obviously, some of the things that we've mentioned, but other than avoiding multitasking, the other big one that people, don't always do is making sure that if there is a problem and they notice that there's a problem, actually addressing it. Because when you've got your pack on and you haven't got all your gear dialed in and everything else, you might have to stop to take your pack off, to get a drink of water. And so people don't necessarily want to do that. But if you don't have enough food and you're not drinking, you're going to eventually run out of energy and not feel that good. So when that happens, obviously get more tired, and when you're more tired, you're more likely to fall. So it's always important. That's the other one, is just to make sure that you pay attention to how you feel as well as the track. And if there's a problem, like you're feeling tired, thirsty, sore or whatever, address it as quickly as possible.
And again, it's not a timed race event that there's
no
second and third. It's about getting you to the finish line. So you do have time to take a couple of minutes to look after yourself.
100%. And look, it's important to remember that you're there to enjoy it. Unfortunately, some people, well, I should say it's not unfortunate, but different people have different ideas about what they want an event to look like and how they want to hike. Some people love to just hike fast because it makes them feel good and they like to push and challenge themselves. And that's totally fine. But in an event like this, where you're doing it with the team, it's actually important to take the time to talk to your team and see how everyone's doing and, really enjoy the day, because you've put in a lot of training and effort to get to here, and you want to take photos of each other and be silly and wear your best outfit and have fun, because that's what it's all really about.
And we love the teams that dress up and go just take that best outfit to the next.
100%. Love the pink tutus in some of your photos. They're rippers.
And we always say you're only as fast as your slowest team member.
100%, but look, some people just don't like to go slow. And the main thing that I'd say in regard to that is, look, it's okay to spread out a little bit. Like if you've got someone who's quite a bit faster and they're happy to just walk at their pace and then, go ahead a bit and then wait for others to catch up, that's fine. But don't leave one person at the back. That's the main thing, is just always make sure that the last person in your team can see the person ahead of them, because that way, you can check in with each other and make sure they're all right.
And that's what we talk about, is like that 100 Ks, enough to be able to yell. And not 100 Ks, 100 meters.
Yeah. Yeah.
100 meters is about as far as you can go in the bush, so that you can yell, you can ask for help, you can see what's going on. And most importantly, for our safety requirements, you need to be 100 meters within whoever's carrying the team tracker, so that we can keep an eye and we're tracking you the whole way and worrying about your safety, because it's quite a remote and limited reception through most of the Wombat State Forest. So
yeah,
it's important for everyone to be looking after each other and staying safe. But we've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, right?
We have.
We knew that we would. Getting back to preparing and potential injuries, or people just a bit worried about, is their body up to it? Is there anything you can do to help people prepare with the services you offer?
Look, 100%. If one of the great things about the Hiking Physio is obviously it's a dedicated physiotherapy service for hikers. So I have just actually finished the overland track and understand completely what it means to get sore feet and get a sore back and all the things that go along with that. I also know all the tricks and tips to make your hiking more efficient. So the big thing to be aware of is if you're really worried about managing the day, you're welcome to do a consult and even just have a chat to me. Like if you've got a sore knee, how am I going to manage my knee on the day? And we can use, your consultation to go over exactly how you're going to do that and what that's going to look like and what you need to do and how you need to treat it afterwards. We can use consultations to talk about anything from, I'm really not sure if I'm using my hiking poles right. Can you show me how to do that? Or it can be a case of, oh, well, I've kind of got a bit of a mild ankle sprain. Do you think it's okay if I actually do this track? Or, can you show me some taping techniques to help get me through it? So there's a lot of different things that that I can do, as well as the fact that with the training that you've got, it's fabulous. You've got a great outline of training, but sometimes training that's very generic doesn't work for some people. So, for example, with some of the strength exercises that you've got, some of those might irritate some people's knees, for example, or maybe they've got a dodgy hip or a sore foot. So what I can also do is have a chat to participants who are maybe feeling like they should be doing the strengthening, but finding that every time they do it, they get sore. So we can fine tune their particular program to better match their needs so that they can still do the strengthening that they need, or maybe more specific strengthening, and actually help get them on the right track so they're really well prepared.
Individualize it so it's perfect for them and their body and their needs and the distance.
Exactly.
Like that. And I think then that also helps people feel so much more confident, and they've had the discussion, and they're not as nervous going out on course, which, that's a big part of it, is the mental side of going for a big walk as well.
Look, as I said, having just come back from doing the overland over 6 days, literally a week and a half ago, I get the mental side of it. Obviously, the overland track is a bit of a different undertaking, but it's the same idea. You've got a big event that you've been looking forward to for months, and it's exciting, and you've been putting in all this work, or maybe you haven't. It can be quite daunting. So, the biggest thing that I'd say in regard to that is if you get to the last 2 weeks before the event, please don't try and throw in a whole bunch of training then, because the most important thing that you can do in the 2 weeks before the event is just make sure you've got all your gear ready, have a bit of a rest, feel like you're nice and fresh for the event, because getting yourself really tired in the last 2 weeks before the event is really not a good idea.
Definitely not. And yeah, you don't, especially if you're panicking that you haven't trained enough, just come on the day, because we can always get you off course. You can have a little rest, come back on and join your teammates. There's no issues with those kind of things. That's much better than actually getting yourself to the point you can't get to the start line.
100%. And look, that's the other thing is that if someone is really worried, they've got an injury and they're just not sure if they should continue training or whatever, there's so many tricks and tips that, like if you've got an Achilles injury, there's ways to manage that. For example, if you've got a knee injury, you can use taping and bracing and hiking poles and all kinds of stuff. There's ways to manage a lot of injuries. So if someone's a little bit sore, then, even this far out, I mean, we're only sort of Feb at this stage. So for most people, unless they've done a really, really quite severe and nasty injury, most injuries we should be able to manage pretty well at this stage and get them back on track in time to do their event.
So I think get into contact with you, get things sorted out, get a plan is the way to go. Now, that's if they're finding these hot spots and issues during training. What about if they start feeling some pain when they're out on course? How should they manage that?
Look, the single most important thing is actually to do something about it, because a lot of people will get sore and then they just don't want to stop. They want to keep going. So blisters are one of the most common things that happen. They're just so incredibly common. So one of the things that I suggest is if the participants can carry like just a small foam mat or a plastic bag or something, so that if they need to sit down and it happens to be wet on the day, they can sit somewhere dry, because if it's going to be wet and they don't have anything, they won't sit down. Of course, you can wait until you get to the wellness stop, but sometimes that's a bit too long. I should mention too that a yoga mat, just the Kmart kind, cut up into a few pieces so that you can spread the pieces out amongst your team. That yoga mats make great little sit mats if necessary.
We have at the wellness stops, and they're also just so light as well for them to be able to attach to their carry.
Yeah. So if you got a hotspot like a blister, carry blister care on you. My favorite, to be honest, is hiker's wool, because I find that I can just tuck it in my socks. It's pretty quick and easy. And even if my socks are a bit wet, it seems to do the job. Or if you're prone to blisters, obviously prevention is one of the best things. So if you know that you're going to have a problem, try and prepare ahead. But once you're actually on the track and you're doing it, then if, you can certainly stop on the way, but absolutely make use of the wellness stops, because, there's lots of great stuff there. There's obviously going to be your first aid stuff if you need anything. There's some mats there, and you can do some stretching and things, and have a drink, have a brief rest, and so forth. You can use some physio cream if you're a bit sore, all of those kind of things. And of course, I'm going to be there. So, I can offer you some tips and tricks if you've got something specific going on. Just check in with me, and I'm happy to kind of give you some guidance. I had exactly that happen on the overland track. I had a couple of people that came and had a chat, and as far as I know, they got through the rest of the track. So definitely check in with me, because I'm happy to help you along.
That's what you're there for. But it's amazing that you're giving up 2 days of your time to support all our wonderful participants. They're very, very lucky to have you with your expertise and knowledge actually there, able to help them on course. It also means that there's no excuses for them not to come and get help when the issues are small. You don't want them to come and see you when they're like, oh, this started 6 hours ago. Can you do something to help me now? I'm sure you'd like them to contacted you 6 hours ago and said, it's only a little niggle.
Yeah, look, obviously I want to know if I can help at any point in time, but the biggest thing that I'd say with all injuries is the sooner that you address them, the easier they are to address. And when that's on trail, obviously hotspots and blisters and chafe is a big one too. So carrying some Glide Balm or some paw cream or any of those kind of things can be really helpful.
Because they've generously given us a nice box of samples, so we've got stuff there for people. There's not enough for everyone to have for the whole event. But definitely there's some stuff there if people run out. That Premax have given us some a nice big box of little samples.
Excellent. So I mean that's great. That's great stuff. Look, that's also really important. And the big thing is in the time in the lead up to the hike, if you've got really sharp, severe or significant pain, particularly anything that lasts more than 2 weeks, and that you've got this event coming up, get in touch, get some help, because we want you to enjoy your training and have a great event. Like, you don't want it to be torture.
Tell us about gear now. So you've said lots about having the right gear. What is the right gear?
Look, the main things that I'd say for an event like this, obviously there's going to be lots of beginners, and the number one thing is to make sure that you've got comfortable footwear that fits properly, and you have the right kind of socks, because cotton should be absolutely avoided. In fact, ideally not having any cotton gear, having quick dry gear for all your gear is a good idea. The reason why cotton, particularly with socks, is bad is because it doesn't dry quick enough and it holds moisture against your skin, and that makes your skin more susceptible to chafe and to blisters. And also, if you're wearing a cotton t-shirt, for example, it doesn't dry quick enough, and if it gets cool, you're gonna end up getting cold. So good footwear and socks. And a big thing that a lot of people make a mistake of in terms of footwear is getting footwear that's a bit too small. And I use the expression footwear because I could get into a multiple hour debate about the benefits of boots versus shoes. Ultimately, the short answer to that is whatever works best for you. But the number one thing that I would say about footwear is just be aware that your size in your hiking footwear will likely be at least 1 to 2 sizes bigger than your regular shoes. And one of the best ways to check and see if it's going to be right for you so that you can avoid black toenails, which again, I've had, even I've done it, is to make sure that when the shoe or boot is unlaced and you slide your foot forward so that your toes just touch the inside of the shoe, is you should be able to get 1 or 2 fingers down behind the back of your heel so that you know that if you're going downhill, you've got a little bit of extra room for your toes. And then obviously making sure that your shoes are laced. That's important. And then, just the common sense stuff, things like dressing for the weather. Ideally, you should have some kind of decent rain jacket because it's pretty miserable if you don't have a decent rain jacket and it rains the entire event. Hopefully it won't, fingers crossed.
But we are very close to Ballarat, so
True.
Still a bit overcast and drizzly.
Yeah. So that can be a good one.
But talking about gear, we often get questions about whether people should be using hiking poles. They're like, you're not going up a mountain, and they I guess they think about hiking poles as traversing a large, well-known mount somewhere in the world. What's your recommendation?
Look, ultimately it comes down to the individual. For an event like this, particularly the longer events, it can be helpful to use hiking poles. The main sort of things that are the consideration are, you're going to be on pretty uneven terrain, and so hiking poles can help with your balance. The other place where hiking poles really come into their own is if you've got if you've undercooked your training a bit, which, again, hiking poles are really good for using your arms to help propel you uphill. So if you know that your leg strength is just a little bit, maybe not quite good enough, using your arms to help can be really good. The other place that they're useful is if you know that you're carrying an injury, if you know you've got a bit of a sore foot or a sore knee, hiking poles particularly helpful for going downhill to help with managing soreness in your knees and things. So look, I love my hiking poles, and I wouldn't do a multi-day hike where I'm carrying a big pack without them. But for a day hike, it really does come down to personal preference. The sort of people who perhaps shouldn't use hiking poles would be people who know that they just trip over their own feet. The other thing is that sometimes there are some places where you can't use hiking poles because it's a bit too bushy or whatever. So the main thing that I'd say is if you're someone who is carrying a bit of a lower extremity injury, in particular sore knees, sore hips, sore feet, or if you know that your leg strength isn't great, maybe consider trying some hiking poles, see if you like them, see if they feel helpful. I believe I gave you a video about how to use them, but I'm not sure if anyone's
on our social media, but people can.
Yeah, cool. So so certainly they're worth a try. Just something to keep in mind though, 2 things. Number one, if you think you're going to use them for the event, you do want to spend some of your time training with them, because when you're using your arms, you're actually carrying the weight of the poles, and you can get quite tired in your arms. So it's also good if you think that you're going to be using poles to consider just checking to see if there's a way that you can attach them to your backpack if you don't want to use them the whole time, or if you get a bit of a sore shoulder, because sometimes that can happen. Sometimes your hands can get a little bit sore. So definitely make sure that if you're going to use them particularly on the 100K, that you've got a way to stow them if you don't want to be using them the whole time. And then the other thing is, if you are planning on using poles, it's really good to do some training without them, because obviously they help you balance, but the whole point of training is to prepare your body for what you're going to put it through. So if you've got the option of doing a bit of training without them, then you're going to have to use a bit more strength, you're going to have to use a bit more balance. And then if you do that, you also won't panic if you realize that you left them in your best friend's car on the day of the event, and that they're not there when you actually need them. So good idea. If you're going to train, if you're going to use them, train with them most of the time, but not all of the time. And yeah, see what works for you.
So before we wrap up, do you have any top tips or tricks for our walkers?
Look, I think I've covered probably most of these, but I'll just quickly run through a few. Number one, yeah, just a bit of a checklist. Pay attention. Number one, pay attention, because it's when you're not paying attention that you'll step on the snake or you'll end up in that divot, and that's when things go wrong. And if you're paying attention, that also means to how you're feeling and making sure that, if you're starting to feel thirsty or tired or hot or whatever, that you then are aware of it. That then means that you should address whatever's going on. So, if you're hungry, eat something. And as a general rule of thumb, you should be having small sips of water often and having a snack of some kind at least every hour. Make sure that you speak up and you communicate with your team. Really, really important. You're all there to enjoy the day. And, the worst thing ever is for one person to feel like, oh, you're speeding off and they're getting exhausted and tired, and then they have a terrible event. So, yeah, speak up to let your team know if you need a rest or if you need support or whatever, and speak up to the coordinators and the people, the wellness stops, and me if you need some help, because we're all there to make sure that you're going to have a great event. Big one is just to make sure that you pace yourself to have the best possible chance of being able to get through the entire event, to feel good, to enjoy it, and to not pull up super sore afterwards. You want to generally, as a rule, be moving at a pace where you can breathe through your nose and you can hold a conversation. And that's even true on the hills. Small hills for some people are still big hills. And oftentimes, you'll be doing some hills in your training as well. So again, just enjoy them and take them gradually. Perfect excuse if you don't want to say, I'm really struggling, is to say, hey, I just need to take a photo. That's an amazing view. Sometimes taking a little bit smaller steps on your uphills and downhills, just particularly if your knees are a little bit sore, particularly on the downhills, when you take a little bit smaller steps, it just doesn't put as much load through the muscles. So your muscles will cope a bit better. Your knees won't hurt as much typically. Yeah, definitely take advantages of the rest stops. One thing that I have found for myself and for a lot of clients is that if you do stop for too long, though, your body can kind of cool down, and then it's like, oh, I got to get going again. So it's good, over the sort of the day, it's fine to stop and have a bit of a longer stop for lunch. But generally, as a rule, you don't want to be stopping for too long. Obviously, if you're going to be doing the 2-day event, or if you want to pull up well and not be too sore on the Sunday, using some recovery techniques can be really helpful. So the typical ones that I find, foam roller is fabulous. Not everyone has one. You can certainly, if you've got a Nalgene bottle, you can use that as a foam roller. The traditional good old rolling pins are a little bit too small, but you can actually roll those across your quads muscles and your calves if you like. And some of the little massage balls are great as well. So doing a bit of that, or book yourself in for a massage. That's also great if you've got that as an opportunity.
Where it's unlimited for, it's a good place to be wanting a massage or spa treatment. But I think a big thing with that, especially at the end of the first day, some people just finish it and they're like, right, I just want to go home. Whereas maybe hang around the finish line a little bit longer. You're there. We've got all the stretching equipment goes to the finish line. So again, there's all the mats, the massage guns, the foam rollers, the massage balls, everything you've talked about. If they're staying and they don't have it at your accommodation, plan to just hang around for another 15 minutes, get all stretched out, talk to you, and that's going to put them in a lot better stead the next day.
Look, 100%. I mean, if you can just, even spend 10 minutes, using a massage gun is fabulous. The other thing is also, obviously, eat something, have something to eat sort of shortly after the event. Make sure that you're replacing all that, fuel that you've lost in your body. Drink enough, because usually you can't replace enough water over the course of the day. It's really important to drink. For many people, having either, as much as I don't love it, having an ice bath or a warm bath, either or, and then just, that evening, a little bit of gentle stretching or whatever. And if you're not doing the event the next day, get out and just go for a cruisy walk, or just, some stuff in the garden or an easy bike ride. Just don't completely plan to lay on the couch and not move, because then all the lactic acid builds up, your body stiffens up, and you'll probably be more sore. So just definitely plan to do something a little bit cruisy. One of the other things that you can do that's often helpful is just considering wearing compression tights. If you happen to have them, look, they're not for everyone. I personally don't tend to use them much. I'm a bit of a subscriber to the old foam roller and the massage gun and the massage ball. So if you can stick around exactly as you said and use those, that's what I would tend to suggest, which is great. And then you can do that obviously if you have one at home the next day, if you're not doing the next day event, or obviously for a couple of days after the event. And most of all, just really enjoy the event and take the opportunity to do the training, because the training is, as I said, that's where the magic happens. It's where you bond with your teammates. It's where you create those habits that you get into the walking, and you can really make a difference to your health and to your life. So enjoy the whole process and have a great time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing all you guys out on the trail and seeing what you achieve. And hopefully it'll be a great day. Fingers crossed for no rain.
A little tiny drizzle is okay.
A little bit drizzle's fine.
Well, thank you, Ro. You're an absolute wealth of information. So for more tips, Ro has the most amazing Instagram where you are really good at producing your content and making it little bite-sized bits of information. So jump onto Instagram at thehikingphysio.au. Are you also on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm also on Facebook, and there is actually a Facebook group. So same thing. It's at thehikingphysio.au. So if you type in the Hiking Physio, you'll probably find me. And also check out the website. Check out my website. The Hiking Physio, www.thehikingphysio.au. There are a few blog articles there. And if you want to get in contact with me, certainly do use the contact form on the website. At the moment, most of my appointments are set on Tuesday afternoons, but honestly, one of the great things about online care is it's incredibly flexible. So if you want to chat to me, you just text me or message me a few times that you can do, and I'm happy to open up some times for you.
Great Aussie Hike, so they know that you've said that. But yeah, all your details are also in the participant info guide and on the training dashboard.
Nice.
And we'll pop everything up on the screen here, so there should be no excuses. Worst case, send us an email at Great Aussie Hike, and we'll put you in touch. But thank you so much for your time, Ro, and for providing such great advice for all our teams. We can't wait to see you in person on Challenge Day.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Anna. And thanks very much for having me. It's a privilege to be invited, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I just think it's such a wonderful cause. I know so many people who struggled with depression and health problems, and getting people out walking is well known to be an excellent thing for mental health and physical health. So yeah, absolutely wonderful. Looking forward to it, and we'll hopefully see you in person then.
We're now joined by podiatrist Steve Thomas from Body Focus Podiatry in Bentley East. Thanks for joining us today, Steve.
No problem. Happy to be here.
We talk to our participants a lot about how important preparation is for an endurance hike like the Great Aussie Hike. What impact do you see walking 30 kilometres, 50 kilometres, 80 kilometres, or even the 100-kilometre walkers over 1 to 2 days? What impact does that have on someone's feet?
Well, it's going to have a huge impact. The total force that's going through your foot with that length of walk is huge, and it's really important that the foot is prepared for it, and not just the muscles, the actual skin itself, skin and nails. They will respond to training. So if you're training semi-regularly, your skin will toughen up. You will be not immune to blisters, but blister-proof a little bit. As well as the muscular conditioning as well. It's essential that you're doing your preparation training so that when you do attempt this long walk, your body is really ready for it.
So is there anything else they can do to prepare other than just going out and doing all these training walks?
There is stuff. Yeah, you want to make sure your gear is adequate. So, footwear obviously is the first thing that comes to mind. However, wearing the right shorts, wearing the right t-shirt. They're all really important because you're going to get chafing in other areas, not just the feet.
And what about nail care? Is there anything they could be doing, even just looking after their nails in the lead up?
Yeah, so I'll be having them relatively short. Don't cut them in the 2 days prior, because your risk of ingrown toenails is quite high post cutting. So probably the week before, give them a decent clip and a file. Don't go hacking away or digging around too deep. And if you are a bit unsure, or if you have a history of ingrown toenail, perhaps go see a podiatrist a week or two prior and get it done professionally.
And again, that prevention of just getting professional help before can often save not needing as much professional help afterwards.
Yeah, you don't want to be walking for 8 hours with ingrown toenail. That would be agony.
What would you recommend if somebody was walking along course and started to feel a hot spot in their foot?
Yeah, I think if you feel a hot spot, you want to get onto it straight away, because once the skin starts blistering, your options are very limited. So there are some great anti-chafing creams out there which you can use to reduce the friction over the skin, and that would be really helpful.
Premax, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They've given us a whole heap of samples to have on course for people as well.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Yeah, they are an excellent product. I'm not a big fan of preventative taping, and some people do that. Yeah, unless you're doing it regularly and you know that it works for you, I wouldn't attempt to do it, because the taping itself can curl and it can create additional hot spots. So I wouldn't be doing additional preventative taping if it's not something you're regularly doing.
I was going to say, we're pretty big into don't do anything new on the day.
Yeah.
It has to be stuff you're very used to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for us, the large majority of people who end up in pain or distress along the course is because of blisters. That's the number one
Yes.
issue. A lot of them are pretty determined to get to the finish line. So us as the event crew looking after them, it's pretty horrific to watch them, knowing every step's quite painful.
Yeah.
Are blisters inevitable, or can people do things to try and minimize their chances?
They're definitely not inevitable. There are many people who walk long distances, run longer distances, and don't suffer from blisters.
Yeah.
Look, and I'll go back to it again. Preparation is key. You need to be doing long kilometers prior to the event to just toughen the skin up a little bit. Check your equipment to make sure that it's not rubbing in areas that you don't want it to. And see how your skin responds to the anti-chafing cream and things like that. So prevention is always the best. And then on the day, if you do feel like you're getting a blister, then you need to double down on the anti-chafing cream to see if that helps. Change socks.
Yeah.
Excess moisture in the shoe is a real killer on feet. So if you're walking all day, I'd be doing minimum 2 changes of socks in that day, minimum.
So would you put the anti-chafing cream on, change the socks at one of our wellness stops, and keep going? So make sure that they're doing both of those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep reapplying the anti-chafe cream and change the socks.
So my next question was, do you have any recommendations for things people should carry on course or with their support crew for the longer distances? I'm already put on that list: extra socks, anti-chafing cream. Anything else you'd add to that?
Yeah, so I think your first aid blister care is probably something that you're going to need to be prepared for as well. If the blister does occur, it's not going to end your race, but it can be quite painful. So there is you can start taping once it is blistered. So I'd be careful with the sports tape, the rigid sports tape. They do. They can start to bunch up and create more pressure spots. So a very thin, in fact, I've got some here I can show you.
That's great.
So it's what we call a fixation tape. So this generally goes under a sports tape if we're doing a strapping. It's much thinner. It can bunch up a little bit, but it's not. It's not. It's going to be a nice kind of gentle adhesive to keep the blister down and stop it from puffing up too much. So that's what I would recommend.
So we've talked about bringing multiple pairs of socks. Do you have any recommendations what people should be thinking about with a sock?
I do a fair bit of trail running, some long trail runs, and I've started using the toe socks, and I've found them to be quite helpful. I also think thick socks, like a thicker sock, is a really good idea too, to give you that kind of cushioning buffer. And then
one thing we always worry about is when we see people coming along at the start line with very low cut socks.
Yeah. Well, if you're used to wearing a low cut, then that's okay for you. But yeah, definitely a low cut sock, you're opening yourself up to a lot of scratches and potential risk of infection. So I'd definitely be wanting that sock to be mid calf as a minimum.
Or at least something that's going to be staying up over your heel. We see people, they slide under the shoe and they get a lot of...
Yeah. And then, so you'll also find you'll get a lot of rocks and debris in those low cut socks as well.
I always talk to people, that's probably a question we get asked every day, is what should I be looking for in a shoe? And so we always talk about making sure that there's room for your toes to expand because they're walking such long distances. And again, we don't know what the weather's going to be like. Making sure that the heel's quite secure in the shoe. We see that a lot when people aren't fitted correctly, and that friction at the back causes them a lot of grief. And then obviously we're massive fans of lugs. On the bottom of all the shoes. It saves a lot of time. Do you have anything to add to that list?
No, I think you've nailed it there. So you need grip. You need a correct fitting shoe. So people do tend to wear their shoes a little bit tight, and your foot is guaranteed going to swell over the course of the day. So you need some expansion room. And the heel slippage at the back, as you mentioned, that's one of the number one causes of blistering.
So definitely, if people are going out to get those shoes, make sure that you're ticking those 3 things off. How important is it not to wear a new shoe on the course?
It's essential, definitely. Yeah, a new shoe.
That was laughable.
Yeah, you're taking a massive risk by wearing a new shoe on the day, even if it feels good in store. Like it's completely different to walking 30 plus Ks in compared to the store. So you want to be training in that shoe for at least 1 month prior. So you want to be doing at least minimum 50 kilometers in that shoe before I would attempt to do a run or walk of any distance.
So the Great Aussie Hike, we got our name because hike actually, when you look it up in the dictionary, it means a really, really, really long walk, which is obviously what we're doing. However, a lot of people go into whatever shop they've decided to purchase shoes from, and they say to the salesperson, I'm doing a hike. And they come out with a big, heavy boot, which is the perfect shoe for certain hikes, but not necessarily the right shoe for us. We recommend staying as light as possible because they're not carrying big, heavy packs with all their tents and gear and food and stuff like that, but instead they're walking an extraordinary long way. When Luke and I were looking around for a shoe that we could recommend for this event, we found the Oboz Kabatic, because that's actually what they're now calling a fast hike because it's so light. Do you recommend a light shoe over a heavier boot for this type of walk?
Yes, for this type of walk, absolutely. If I was doing this walk, I would be wearing a trail runner. Gore-Tex trail runner, with a decent stack height underneath, so a lot of cushioning and a slight rocker bottom, and probably a drop of about minimum 6 millimeters. So that's a little lift under your heel to help with forward propulsion. I would be staying well clear of a, high top, heavy hiking boot.
There's no looks quite nice to them with the elevations. There's no big mountains to transverse.
Yeah, if you're not climbing, Mount Hotham or Everest, then there's no need for that.
The elevation is over quite a few kilometers, so it's going to be hard for them to even notice. We always like to finish up by saying what would be your top tips and tricks that you would recommend to our walkers in regards to feet, anything else you'd like to mention? Our whole aim is for them to finish with a huge smile on their face. So what would you recommend they do to get to finish that way?
Yeah, I would say preparation. Just, I'm going to come back to it again. You need to be doing Ks, even if it's, you know, it's not, you don't just have to do big long walks, 10 plus kilometers. If you're doing 3 to 5 kilometers a day or 5 days a week, that's going to make a huge difference when you get to the long hike.
So if they
Because
haven't already, download that training program, get it on the fridge and start following it.
Yeah.
Exactly what they're being instructed to do. But yeah, we're huge on preparation. So that's great to hear. So anyone who'd like to see Steve in person, he's available for appointments at Body Focus Podiatry in Bentley East. We're just popping that website up on the screen now for you to go and chase him down. So thanks so much for your time, Steve, and providing such great advice for all our teams. No doubt this will help keep everyone pain-free, happy, hopefully blister-free, and so they can all have a big dance at the finish line.
Excellent.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
We're now joined by Rihanna and Andreas from Rome. Rihanna and Andreas are all outdoor enthusiasts and trail runners. They're based in Mornington, where Andreas practices as a sports medicine doctor. He also holds a PhD in exercise physiology and sports nutrition, which is perfect for today's topic of nutrition and how to look after yourself on challenge day. Rome came about because they grew tired of sugary bars and gels when out on their adventures. They started experimenting with taking nut butter out on their adventures, and so their main product, Energy Nut Butter, was born. Their goal was to create a product that was delicious and made from real ingredients like almonds and cashews. Guys, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with all our participants today.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
So tell us, how important is nutrition to a successful challenge experience?
Nutrition is super important, and I think it's one of the elements that can make the difference between you having a really great day out on course or a not so great one. And we all put so much effort into training and getting to the start line in great shape. And it would be such a shame if something as simple as your nutrition lets you down because you get dehydrated or you suffer from an upset stomach on course. You know, you've put in so much work with your team to get to the start line. It's worth thinking about these things now so you can mitigate all of those risks on the day.
Very much so, and especially because we are a bush course, there's a long distance between the toilets, so upset stomachs is definitely not something you want when you're 10 kilometres from the next stop.
Ideal, yeah.
So when should our participants start thinking about what they're going to eat and drink on challenge day?
You should really be starting to think about your nutrition now. And I imagine for a lot of you guys, you'll be in the later stages of your training where you're starting to do longer walks on the weekends. And that's a great time to experiment with different food and drink. Work out what you like and what foods you prefer to avoid. And then on your longer training sessions, aim to have a little plan in place for your nutrition. And just pay attention just pay attention to what's working well with you, what sits well with you, and then what maybe doesn't. Another good idea is to start to research the checkpoints or the wellness stops on the course and estimate how long it may take you to get between each checkpoint, so you know if you need to carry food or drink with you.
And look, we love them all to definitely have lots of water out on course with them all the time. But some teams we see, they don't carry any food with them on course, which isn't a good idea. And then some people, their packs are really heavy with they've almost taken 2 days food with them. So it's really great to use those long training walks to fine tune all that and be just ready for a challenge day, ready to go. So are there any differences between someone walking, say, the 30-kilometre event or the 50-kilometre versus someone walking the 100-kilometre, and what they need to take into account with these different distances?
So I will answer this question. So the general principles would be the same for nutrition, but with longer distances, it's important to be a bit more disciplined and staying more attentive to hydration, because dehydration can affect performance, affect energy levels, and can upset stomach. And also it's important to be more consistent with energy consumption, so consuming that at more regular intervals. And there is another element in longer distances, some participants may experience something that's called taste fatigue, when taste buds become tired of eating foods that are of the same flavor, especially with sugary foods. So that's why it's important to kind of mix in wider variety of foods during your training and during the challenge as well.
So you know what's going to sit in your stomach because you don't know what out of that little pool of things you're actually going to want on the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you recommend people grazing constantly as they're walking along the course, or should they just walk the section and then save and have most of their food at the wellness stop?
As I understand, wellness stops will be around 10 kilometers apart in the race. So in this case, I would say grazing is a bit better approach, and you can stop in those wellness stops and have slightly larger snack or even a small meal.
Yeah.
The problem with big meals is that they can left you feeling overly full and can sometimes send you into energy slump while your body is digesting that.
Which is not good if you're out walking 100 Ks.
Yeah, exactly.
So if somebody had, for example, a ham and salad wrap, would it be something you'd say have half of that at one wellness stop, then go out and walk the 10 or 15 Ks and then have another one, the other half at the other wellness stop? Don't sit down and have a whole wrap and an apple and a piece of banana cake and everything and go, oh, well, it's lunchtime.
Exactly. So those wraps can be your kind of a bigger meals, and between those wellness stops, because 10 kilometers will probably take more than an hour and longer to cover. So during that period, smaller snacks, making sure you're hydrating, and just regular energy intake with smaller snacks will make a difference.
Most of our participants will be out between the stops for 2 to 3 hours. So, you know, it's a long time to go without food if they're not carrying something small at least to have on the course. Is there anything you recommend more to carry on course and have?
In terms of energy,
Yeah. Yep.
you always have to carry some sort of a energy with you, especially if we know that it's a 2 to 3 hours gap. So a mix of carbohydrate and protein-based foods, snacks. Some of them can be solid foods. Some of them can be consumed as the energy drink, electrolyte drink, as part of your hydration. I would say in those kind of challenges, prioritizing natural nutrition could be a good choice, especially a good mix of savory foods, foods that are salty as well, and some people
crave salty foods.
Yeah, you certainly find that during the later stages of an event, you may start to crave saltier foods, so like potato chips or pretzels or something like that. Good options to have on hand, or they may even be at the wellness stops.
Do have salt and vinegar chips towards the end of the day. It's always the time people are starting to look for stuff like that. Have you got any other examples of foods that people could be eating, ideas, if they're just starting out and going, I don't know what actually to try?
Yeah, simple things. So so even just a sandwich, if you like peanut butter and jam sandwiches, make up a sandwich, cut it in half, eat a half at a time. Bananas are great. I know they're not always the most practical to pack if you've got a heavy bag, because they can get bruised.
Bananas is something we have lots of at the wellness stops as well. Yeah. So it makes it easier than getting a soggy banana in the bottom of your pack.
Bananas are great because they're really gentle on the stomach, and they do help if you aren't feeling that great. You can experiment with little salami sticks. We've been out on long adventures where we've bought mini brie cheese wheels, and they're actually quite a nice little savory snack. Or biscuits or rice crackers, those types of things are good. You can cut them down into snack size, or if you need something a bit bigger, it's quite easy to carry a bit more, and they're relatively light as well. And obviously our energy nut butter is a great little addition to your food, whether that be in training or on the event. We would recommend that don't leave it for the event day to try a bunch of new foods. So stick to familiar things, really. That's a bit.
Things that they like.
Pardon?
Probably things that you like.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely things that you like.
Yeah.
And we do notice people can tend to over-index to really sugary stuff at the start. And I mean, Andres can talk a little bit about stacking carbohydrates, but you've just got to be quite careful.
I was going to say, what kind of food should they avoid?
I think there are a couple of maybe principles what to avoid. And one thing that Brianna just mentioned is the stacking products. For example, products that are high in sugar. So, for example, if you're having an energy bar and then wash it down with Powerade or other high sugary
Coke or something,
or Coke, for example, that could upset your stomach. So a better idea is to wash these foods with just simple water. And then, if you want to add Powerade, you can add a bit later. But just using that principle, if you are having a high carbohydrate food, it's better not to wash it with more carbohydrates.
Is there anything they should watch with sports drinks? I mean, it's such a variety with when everything says electrolytes, but sugar content, is that something you'd highly recommend everyone when they're trying out these drinks if they want to use them to read the nutrition panel?
I think that the main principle for this specific challenge is more thinking about hydration rather than getting a lot of concentrated carbohydrates. So that would be probably another element to almost avoid. I would skip energy gels and really concentrated sports drinks. And, if participant wants a bit of a pickup in terms of energy, a fizzy drink or lollies even can be a good choice.
When it comes to electrolyte, you're right, Anna. It does pay to look at the nutrition panel because you may see two products that say that they're electrolytes, but one's got, say, a lot of, 30 grams of carbohydrate per serving, and one has none, so no calories at all. So you're probably best to go with one that doesn't really have much or any calories in it. So that's really just got your salts and minerals that you need to rehydrate. And that can come in powder form, but you can also get the effervescent tablets, which are quite lightweight and quite handy, easy to pop into a drink bottle. It's quite a good idea, if you have got space, and we don't want to weigh your bag down, but carrying, maybe a bottle that's just plain water and then one other one that's got electrolytes in it. So you can kind of alternate between them while you're walking over, a stretch of time.
Yeah. And then we have lots of Aqualite at the wellness stops as well. We like that one because it's lower in sugar than some of the other products on the market. So that's a great one. And you see lots of people doing that, as you said, the 2 drink bottles, so they can fill up one with water and one with the Aqualite and take those out on course for the next section. So especially for our 100K walkers, by the time they get to the 95-kilometer mark, is it all right for them to throw the rules with sugar out and just start getting, those red frogs or the snakes and stuff is sometimes what they need to do that last hour to get to the finish line, or hands off all the rules by that stage?
You've got very little to lose at that point. I think, if you're feeling good and, it's the same in a marathon race. They, at the very last aid station, that's where they put all the Coke, because they know that if you just need that last bit of energy to get to the finish line, and once you're at the finish line, you'll be taken care of. So normally it's fine if you're wanting just a little pick me up at that last wellness stop in the last 5K. You should be fine if you're feeling.
Yeah, we like to start giving out Chupa Chups at that stage because we find it's that little bit of boost, but also sucking the Chupa Chup seems to be something that keeps them a little bit longer. It's a mental challenge by that stage, isn't it?
Exactly.
So while everyone is now ready and equipped to plan their challenge day nutrition, we have an exciting announcement to make. These guys are so committed to helping you have great nutrition while walking long distances that they're providing a Rome nut butter sample for every single participant. This means you can pop it into your pack at the start line and then use while walking on course for that important sustained energy release. So what are your recommendations for when participants should use their sample?
So as we mentioned earlier, You can use it on challenge day if you're familiar with nut butters and have been using nut butter in your training. Otherwise, if not, we would recommend saving it as a post-event snack or for your next adventure. We don't, like we said before, don't experiment with wildly different things on, challenge day. Just keep it simple, keep it to what you're used to. But this is what the packets look like. They're very lightweight, very easy to use. You just tear off the top and you can squeeze it onto fruit or straight into your mouth if you want to, or onto a wrap or something like
I love mine on banana.
Yeah, it's great. I love mine on banana.
Very, very yum. But I think nut butters, people have got time now. There's still enough time before challenge day. I think they are a great thing for people to purchase and start trying out and experimenting with, as you said, on those walks, because it is a great thing to use on challenge day, especially if they've got one that they're getting in the start line. So as you showed us a little packet before, we're just now going to, I got you guys to quickly put together a video to how to use the nut butter on challenge day. So we'll play that now just so everyone can see. It's so much easier if you get a demonstration how to use the packet.
So you just knead the packet so the butter's nice and mixed up. Tear the top off, and then you can see the nut butter in here. And if you're wanting to, you can squeeze it out of the packet. If you're wanting to eat it straight out, our little handy tip is just to fold the packet in half so you can get it into your mouth easily.
So if anyone would like to try the nut butters, or Rome also has protein powders, make sure you jump into your training dashboard and check out the 40% off discount code. Again, your generosity to support the Great Aussie Hike community is amazing, and we can't thank you both enough. So before we wrap up, I always like to ask, what are your top tips and tricks for our participants to have a great experience on course and successfully make it to the finish line with a massive smile on their faces? And enough to have a dance. We can't let them leave all their energy on course.
Yeah, let's make it simple with tips. So the tip number one is practice your nutrition during training. So you've still got plenty of time to experiment with different foods and try different combinations. Then tip number two, come up with a plan. So know what's available in those wellness stops and have a rough idea of the schedule you would like to follow. As we kind of mentioned, 30 minutes is a good start. 30 minutes for snacking, making sure you're hydrating.
And you can
every 30 minutes.
Yeah, every 30 to 40 minutes. And I mean, it could be a fun little thing to do with your team, is to kind of alternate. Okay, it's your turn to remind us that we've got to eat in the next 40 minutes, or come up with a little schedule. You can, if you've got an Apple Watch or something, you can set up a little reminder on your watch or on your phone just to, trigger that memory of, okay, we've got to drink or have a little snack now.
And when you say that, like, just every 30 minutes, that could be as simple as one bite from a muesli bar or a couple of nuts, or like they don't have to eat.
You don't have to force yourself. Yeah.
Eat a whole sandwich every 30 minutes. It's just continually putting some sustenance in your body.
Yeah,
exactly. That will help to keep energy levels stable and will make you feel better. Yeah,
and that's the biggest thing. It makes you feel better. You feel your body.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe the final tip is be flexible, and be flexible in the sense that, your favorite snack during training session may suddenly become not your favorite on the challenge day. So have a few options in mind for this kind of scenario.
And again, our longer distance walkers all have support crew vehicles. So there's no excuse not to have a few different little items in a tub in your support crew's boot. So you've got lots of different options to choose from.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great idea.
So I'd like to thank you both so much for all the great advice you've provided here today. You've also put together a section in our participant info guide, so that's definitely worth everybody checking out and making sure they're reading. You can give them a follow at Rome Energy, or check out the website that we've just popped across the screen now. Thanks heaps, guys.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Anna.
you.
And everyone have a great walk and a great experience on Challenge Day.
And they're going to be so much better because they're going to have their Rome nut butter to keep them going and feeling good.
Thanks.